Stephen Lawson, continue our team coverage here in studio. Post-election reaction, the runoffs yesterday. We're going to get under ballot in a second, down ballot. But, I mean, these are just such big races, national headlines. The Rick Jackson victory, the Mike Collins victory. Now we know who's going to be facing whom. But I want to go back to Rick Jackson for a second. It was to me, that was the biggest surprise. I thought he could win, but I didn't think the margin would be that big. Now, here's what I think Republicans need to do, aside from coalescing around Rick Jackson, is they need to do a deep dive debate prep with this dude. Like, Keisha Lance Bottoms is polished. She's a great communicator. She's a formidable debater. Rick Jackson had that one debate, wasn't great.
Yep.
They need to go to school right now and bring in the national, like a Chris Christie, like whomever was prepping President Trump for the debate. Like, they need to go to school, or there might not be debates at all. Right, that's an option too. That Rick Jackson says, "No, I'm not debating."
Yeah, I think there will be a debate, and I think one of the things that I think you're going to see, not just for Rick Jackson, for both campaigns, is they're going to have to start fleshing out their policy positions on what they would do as governor. We've seen a little bit of that from Keisha Lance Bottoms in terms of Medicaid expansion, and we've seen some hints about that from Rick Jackson in terms of slashing property taxes, cutting the state income tax in half. But I think as these campaigns go along, they're going to flesh out those policy positions. I think that will give Rick Jackson a better standing and foundation in a debate to really hone in on, okay, here's substantively what I'm projecting, what my message is, what I'm going to do as governor. I think that will give him a stronger leg. But certainly on the debate prep side, I think you're probably going to see some more practice and refining. There's going
to be a lot of work has to be done, right? And listen, he's not a politician. And, there were some stumbles in that debate. Obviously, it didn't matter. He won the runoff, and he is now, fully charged and ready to go and top of the ticket. But, there's time. There's 139 days. I keep saying 139 days, folks. That's it. And then we can stop hearing the ads and getting the texts and everything. But I think there needs to be some homework done here and making sure that he is as prepared as possible on that debate stage.
Yeah, 100%. He's going to have to get sharper, more refined. And I think you'll see that. I think, as his campaign team pivots now towards a general election, I think they're going to have a lot more messages to talk about. One of the things that I'm really interested to see from Rick Jackson that I think you'll see from his campaign, he's done so much philanthropic work, particularly in the foster care community, but also with Jackson Healthcare. They've consistently been rated as one of the best places in Georgia to work. I imagine you're going to start seeing him lean into that business background a little bit more, his philanthropy a little bit more in the lives that he's changed, because he's got a powerful story. And I think those messages will play in a general election and on the debate stage very well.
Well, the only reason that we knew Rick Jackson before this was because, he was one of the heroes of Clark's Christmas Kids every year. And I'm not telling the campaign what to do, but I'm sure there's some audio of me and Clark Howard at praising Rick Jackson's generosity for Clark's Christmas Kids. I'm glad you mentioned this, the pivot toward the middle. So Rick Jackson spent a ton of money on the campaign, and Keisha Lance Bottoms didn't have to do that. John Ossoff didn't have, so they didn't have to go far left to win their primaries, right? They won. Collins, Jackson, they had to go far right. We see that in primaries. Will we see a pivot toward the middle now, getting those suburban voters and the Mongolian and Cheetos ads, were resonant. Like, they obviously worked, but are we going to see these Republican candidates now kind of move a little bit toward the middle?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you're going to see is on both sides of the aisle, but, particularly on the Republican side, I think you're going to see a laser focus on affordability, cost of living, and the economy. We know, Mark, that is what is dominating voters' minds, not just in Georgia, but across the country. We've talked about that at length. I think the best campaigns, again, we've said this, the best campaigns and candidates are going to be the ones that put forward positive, forward, solution-oriented plans to address affordability and cost of living. I think you've seen a little bit of that with the Rick Jackson campaign. You've certainly seen Keisha Lance Bottoms and John Ossoff talk about that. I think you're going to see Mike Collins and Rick Jackson really hone in on that. And that gets to the point about specific policy positions that I think they're going to flesh out over the next month.
So do you see the campaigns and all of the campaigns here, both Democrat and Republican, like I'm Keisha Lance Bottoms. I approve this message. I'm Mike Collins. Like they're gonna stay there and let the PACs do like the negative ads.
Yeah.
They have them do the dirty work.
Really good point. And I think that's exactly what you're going to see on display. I think more so in the Senate race because there will be a lot more national money on that race,
yes.
right? Yeah, buckle up, get ready. We've talked about the fundraising advantage that John Ossoff has from his campaign, where he's going to go squarely after Mike Collins. I think you're going to see the inverse where you see outside Republicans groups, particularly the President's PAC, particularly the Senate Leadership Fund, which have much more money than the National Democrats right now. They are going to try to define John Ossoff. So you're going to see sort of an inverse that may end up benefiting Mike Collins in that he's not the one paying directly to go against John Ossoff. But yes, you'll see that dynamic in play.
We have a couple minutes left. I want to talk down ballot. To me, the biggest surprise down ballot was the loss of John F. Kennedy, JFK. I thought he, name alone and who was endorsing him. I thought he would win.
Yeah, again, the name John F. Kennedy, you would think that he would have won convincingly. Greg Dolezal has been a really effective state senator. He ran a very strong campaign. He talked about the issues that mattered to Republican voters and did so in a really targeted way. He was crisscrossing the state. Kudos to Greg Dolezal for running a campaign and really, I think taking out somebody that was the odds-on favorite.
Yeah, that surprised me. And not surprised Vernon Jones didn't get across the finish line again.
Yeah, I think this is a good news for Republicans not to have Vernon Jones. He had a lot of baggage and a lot of ethical questions around his campaign. Tim Fleming's going to do a great job. I think he's going to be a boost for the Republican ticket, and I think he's going to make a great Secretary of State if he's elected.
Anything else that stood out to you down ballot that we should mention?
No, I think those are the big things. I mean, I think the biggest thing for Republicans, again, as we talked about, is coalescing and unifying to have a unified front. Because, look, we know, Mark, we've talked about the larger political environment could be a little rocky for Republicans. And so I think having Rick Jackson and his resources at the top of the ticket and being able to unify, getting Governor Kemp on board to do that so that Republicans are rowing in the same direction, I think will be really important for their chances.
If I were in a campaign right now, I would have my binder, like my show book right now that I'm holding up on, and I would have, okay, A, B, and C. All right, this is the campaign we're going to run, and this is Democrat or Republican. If the economy still stinks, inflation's still high, this is what we're doing. If things are getting better, we go with, option B. And if things are phenomenal, we go with, option C. And I'm sure they know this, right? I'm not telling them, but like they are, now it's go. It's go time. The runoffs are over. The general's coming up. And you have to be able to pivot because who knows what's going to happen with Iran? Who knows what's going to happen with Russia, Ukraine? Who knows what's going to happen with gas prices and grocery prices? So the campaigns, luckily, they got a lot of money. They are going to be prepared for the general election.
They are, and we've talked about it before, Mark. I think the candidates that will win in Georgia in November are the ones that are talking about the affordability and cost of living in a solution-oriented way. That is what is on the mind of voters, and the candidates that do the best job speaking to that are the ones that are going to win.
Dentons.com for all things Stephen Lawson. Did you get any rest last night? How late were you working?
A little bit. I was up till midnight.
Okay.
Early morning.
Well, the Braves. The Braves got rained out, so you didn't have to miss that.
I didn't have to miss that. I'll be there tonight.